Police Academy made the world laugh with sirens, slapstick, and unforgettable characters. But while audiences laughed, tragedy was quietly building off-screen. Health collapsed, careers stalled, lives unraveled, and many met tragic endings no one talks about. Today, we'll uncover how 13 beloved cast members met tragic endings you probably never knew about. Let's find out. George R. Robertson as Chief Henry J. Hurst. George R. Robertson was born on April 20th, 1933 in Brampton, Ontario, Canada. At 51, he played Henry J. Hurst, the stiff traditionalist police chief in Police Academy, 1984. He kept this role through 6 films, yet the further he rose on screen, the more turbulent his private world became, leading his life into shadows the audience never saw. His marriage to his first wife collapsed under the weight of financial instability and constant rejections. Leaving Robertson alone to raise his son while battling bouts of depression, he hid behind polite interviews. When he married Adele Marie Probst in 1961, the stability he hoped for never came easily. His unpredictable schedule and long absences strained the household until arguments became part of their rhythm. Even as Police Academy made him recognizable, he privately feared being trapped in supporting roles forever, haunting him whenever auditions dried up and bills continued stacking. Career setbacks deepened the pressure at home. Hollywood kept him stuck in authority figures and bureaucrats, killing his dream of ever carrying a film. During the 1970s and 1980s, he juggled theater, television, and part-time jobs just to keep food on the table, embarrassed to admit how fragile his career truly was. Health problems in later years, quiet heart complications, shortness of breath, and fatigue pushed him further into isolation. Sadly, Robertson died in Toronto on January 29, 2023, at the age of 89, his family describing a peaceful passing that contrasted sharply with the decades of strain he fought through. His net worth at the end, around $2 million, was not the fortune of a Hollywood star, but the hard-earned result of 60 years spent surviving in an industry that rarely made room for him. George Gaines, as Commandant Eric Lessard. George Gaines was born on May 16, 1917, in Helsinki, Finland. At 67, he played Eric Lassard, the absent-minded but lovable commandant in Police Academy, 1984. This performance turned him into an unexpected comedic icon. But behind that warm smile sat a lifetime of emotional fractures that never truly healed. His first marriage ended abruptly, crushed by the stress of unstable work and relentless rejection in Hollywood, leaving Gaines convinced for years that he was fundamentally unlovable. When he married actress Alan Ann McClary in 1953, their union lasted 6 decades, yet it was far from effortless. Their careers constantly pulled them apart, and long separations created wounds neither fully addressed. The deepest tragedy came in 1989 when their son, Matthew, died in a car crash on his way to Nepal. Gaines never recovered, often breaking down privately between takes, unable to speak his child's name without trembling. His career, though prolific, carried its own quiet torment. Hollywood refused to cast him in leading roles because of his accent, forcing him to watch younger, less skilled actors leap ahead while he remained stuck in side characters. Even after success in Tootsie and Punky Brewster, he feared every job might be his last. As he aged, memory loss began stealing the tools of his craft. Sadly, Gaines died on February 15, 2016, at his daughter's home in North Bend, Washington, at the age of 98, after years of gradual physical and cognitive decline. His net worth of around $5 million reflected a lifetime of steady work rather than stardom. He was laid to rest beside his wife, finally reunited after years of grief, leaving the world a legacy defined by humor on screen and immeasurable sorrow off of it. Marion Ramsay as Officer Laverne Hooks. Marion Ramsay was born on May 10, 1947, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, United States. At 37, she played Officer Laverne Hooks, the soft-spoken cadet with a shockingly powerful scream, in Police Academy, 1984. The role followed her through 6 films and turned her into a cult favorite. But the woman behind that tiny voice lived a far harsher reality. Her marriage in the early 1980s, kept deliberately private, ended in a painful divorce when her husband's substance addiction consumed their life together. The collapse left Ramsay emotionally scarred and financially strained, forcing her to shoulder family responsibilities alone. Loneliness followed her from set to set, deepening her depression for years. Professionally, Hollywood never allowed her full range to exist. Despite a Tony-winning triumph in Ain't Misbehavin', she was repeatedly reduced to comic side roles, denied serious dramatic or musical leads because of racial and gender stereotypes. As major opportunities dried up after Police Academy, the fear of irrelevance set in. Chronic heart disease and diabetes quietly eroded her strength, and the emotional toll of losing close friends to AIDS, leaving her mentally exhausted and grieving in silence. Sadly, Ramsay died in Los Angeles on January 7, 2021, at the age of 73, after complications related to long-term illness. Her net worth, estimated at around $1.5 million, reflected decades of persistence rather than reward. She was laid to rest quietly, leaving behind laughter on screen. Bubba Smith as Moses Hightower. Bubba Smith was born on February 28, 1945, in Orange, Texas, United States. At 39, he played Moses Hightower, the towering yet gentle giant, in Police Academy, 1984. The role made him beloved by millions and followed him through 6 films. Yet fame could not protect him from the damage already done. Smith's first marriage collapsed in 1977 under the crushing pressure of professional football and untreated emotional instability. His second marriage ended in 1990 as alcohol abuse and mood swings intensified, leaving him estranged from his children and drowning in regret. His acting career never escaped the shadow of his NFL past. Despite success on Married, with children and lucrative commercials, Hollywood saw him only as the athlete, not an actor. Financial stress returned as roles became sporadic, while years of head trauma manifested as depression, impulsive behavior, and cognitive decline. Posthumous findings would later confirm Stage 3 CTE, explaining the darkness that overtook his final years alongside severe heart disease and obesity. Finally, Smith was found dead in his Los Angeles home on August 3, 2011, at the age of 66, the result of acute drug intoxication combined with heart failure. His net worth, approximately $500,000, stood in stark contrast to the glory he once commanded. David Graf as Sergeant Eugene Tackleberry. David Graf was born on April 16, 1950, in Lancaster, Ohio, United States. At 34, he played Eugene Tackleberry, the gun-obsessed, hyper-militaristic officer, in Police Academy, 1984. The character made him unforgettable to audiences, but the intensity audiences laughed at followed him home. Graf married Catherine Graf in 1983, and together they raised 2 sons, Daniel and Sean. Their marriage endured, but not without strain. Long shooting schedules, constant travel, and Graf's growing anxiety about providing stability led to frequent arguments and quiet guilt. As Police Academy faded in the 1990s, financial pressure mounted, and Graf struggled deeply with depression, feeling trapped by an image he could not escape while fearing irrelevance in Hollywood. Professionally, his career narrowed instead of expanding. Casting directors dismissed him for leading roles, labeling his appearance as too rough or too loud, even as he delivered strong performances in The West Wing and Star Trek Voyager. The loss of steady work forced him into smaller television parts and convention appearances, slowly eroding his confidence. Underneath it all, a long-standing heart condition went largely unmanaged, worsened by stress, weight fluctuation, and exhaustion. Sadly, Graf died suddenly from a heart attack on April 7, 2001, while attending a family wedding in Phoenix, Arizona, just 9 days before his 51st birthday, at the age of 50. He was buried at Forest Rose Cemetery in Lancaster, Ohio. His net worth, estimated at around $500,000, reflected a life of steady work rather than security. James Hampton as mayor of Miami. James Hampton was born on July 9, 1936, in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, United States. At 52, he played the flamboyant and opportunistic mayor of Miami in Police Academy 5. Assignment: Miami Beach, 1988. The role showcased his effortless comedic timing. Off-screen, however, his life was quietly unraveling. Hampton's marriage to Mary Deese, later Mary Jo Hampton, survived for years but was strained by constant separation. As he shifted into directing projects like Evening Shade, long absences from home intensified emotional distance, arguments, and loneliness on both sides. This stress pushed him toward alcohol as a coping mechanism, a period he later described as one of quiet self-destruction that nearly cost him his family. His career brought respect, but little peace. Despite acclaim from The Longest Yard and Teen Wolf, Hampton lived with the fear that success was temporary, always chasing the next job. In 2010, a Parkinson's disease diagnosis changed everything. Tremors, stiffness, and loss of mobility stripped away his independence, ending his ability to direct and perform. Sadly, Hampton died on April 7, 2021, at his home in Fort Worth, Texas, at the age of 84, following complications from advanced Parkinson's disease. His net worth, estimated at around $3 million, stood in stark contrast to his final years of physical decline. Art Metrano as Lieutenant Captain Mauser. Art Metrano was born on September 22, 1936, in Brooklyn, New York, United States. At 49, Art Metrano played Mauser, the scheming, cowardly antagonist, in Police Academy 2, their first assignment, 1985. At 50, he returned as the same character in Police Academy 3, Back in Training, 1986. The role made him recognizable, but it would be the last time his career felt secure. His marriage to Rebecca Elizabeth Chute, which began in 1972, deteriorated slowly under financial stress and emotional exhaustion, ending in a bitter divorce in 2005, marked by disputes over money and care responsibilities. When Metrano later married Jamie Susan Golder, love remained, but the joy was shadowed by resentment and grief as his physical independence disappeared. The strain of disability reshaped their marriage into one of endurance rather than happiness. In 1989, a devastating accident shattered everything. Metrano broke his neck and severely damaged his spinal cord after falling from a ladder, leaving him partially paralyzed and forcing Hollywood to quietly move on without him. Depression followed, compounded by lawsuits, canceled roles, and the humiliation of watching his career evaporate overnight. Though he later raised money for spinal injury charities through one-man shows, the pain of losing his craft never truly faded. Sadly, Metrano died of natural causes at his home in Aventura, Florida, on September 8, 2021, at the age of 84. His estimated net worth of around $1 million reflected resilience rather than reward. Ed Nelson as governor. Nielsen. Ed Nelson was born on December 21, 1928, in New Orleans, Louisiana, United States. At 58, Ed Nelson played Governor Nielsen, the polished political authority figure, in Police Academy 3, Back in Training, 1986. The appearance added another title to a long resume. Behind it, however, his personal life was under growing strain. Nelson's marriage to Patricia Amelia Miller, whom he married in 1951, lasted over 6 decades but was tested by his relentless devotion to work. During the height of Peyton Place, he became emotionally distant, leaving Patricia to raise their 6 children largely alone while resentment quietly accumulated. As a result, long periods of separation and unresolved conflict defined their later years together. Professionally, fame brought pressure rather than peace. After Peyton Place, scandals and industry politics damaged his reputation, limiting leading opportunities and forcing him into endless guest roles. As he aged, inherited heart disease worsened, and by his later years, congestive heart failure drained his energy, making him stepping away from the industry. Sadly, Nelson died on August 9, 2014, at the age of 85 from congestive heart failure while under hospice care. His net worth, estimated at around $2 million, stood as proof of longevity, not ease. Howard Hesseman as Captain Pete Lassard. Howard Hesseman was born on February 27, 1940, in Lebanon, Oregon, United States. At 45, Howard Hesseman played Pete Lassard, the affable, good-natured police captain, in Police Academy 2. Their first assignment, 1985. The role added warmth to the franchise and briefly expanded his comic legacy. Behind the humor, however, his personal life remained fragile. His first marriage to Catherine Maison collapsed in 1970 after years marked by drug abuse and emotional instability that nearly ended his career before it fully began. When he later married actress Caroline Ducroc, the relationship lasted 33 years, but it was not without conflict. Differences in lifestyle, long absences, and the lingering scars of his past addictions created quiet but persistent tension. Professionally, success carried its own weight. Despite Emmy-nominated acclaim from WKRP in Cincinnati and later prominence in Head of the Class, Hesseman lived with the anxiety that his past would overshadow his work. In his later years, a late diagnosis of colon cancer changed everything, forcing repeated treatments and weakening the body that once carried sharp comedic timing with ease. Sadly, Hesseman died in Los Angeles on January 29, 2022, at the age of 81 due to complications following colorectal surgery. His estimated net worth of around $5 million reflected longevity rather than ease. Andrew Rubin as Cadet, George Martin. Andrew Rubin was born on June 22, 1946, in New Bedford, Massachusetts, United States. At 38, Andrew Rubin played George Martin, the smooth-talking, womanizing cadet, in Police Academy, 1984. The role briefly positioned him as a recognizable comedic face. What followed, however, was a slow and painful fade. Rubin's marriage to Jordan Heller was stable on the surface, and together they raised 2 children, but emotional strain quietly grew as his career momentum vanished. After Police Academy, steady roles disappeared, leaving Rubin battling depression and self-doubt while trying to shield his family from financial and emotional uncertainty. The pressure of being remembered for a single role haunted him, turning silence between auditions into despair. Professionally, he remained active in television, yet without a defining breakthrough. Appearances in The Odd Couple and Mary Hartman brought respect but not security. Years of heavy smoking compounded stress and gradually destroyed his health, leading to a lung cancer diagnosis. Finally, Rubin died in Los Angeles on October 5, 2015, at the age of 69 after a long battle with lung cancer. His net worth, estimated at around $1 million, reflected dedication rather than reward. Tab Thacker as Ox. Tab Thacker was born on March 10, 1962, in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, United States. At 25, Tab Thacker played Ox, the massive, intimidating cadet, in Police Academy 4, Citizens on Patrol, 1987. At 26, he returned as the same character in Police Academy 5, Assignment, Miami Beach, 1988. His physical presence was unforgettable, but it masked a life already beginning to fracture. Thacker's marriage to his wife Sharon was strained almost from the beginning by his rapidly declining health. Diagnosed with severe diabetes at a young age, his condition placed relentless emotional and financial pressure on their household, turning love into constant worry. As medical bills mounted and his strength faded, the weight of dependency slowly reshaped their relationship into one defined by fear rather than partnership. Professionally, his fall was brutal and fast. A former NCAA wrestling champion, Thacker watched his athletic and acting careers collapse as diabetes led to circulation failure and eventual limb amputation. Hollywood disappeared, forcing him to open nightclubs and small businesses simply to survive. Depression followed, intensified by isolation and the humiliation of losing the body that once defined his identity. Tragically, Thacker died in Raleigh, North Carolina, on December 28, 2007, at the age of 45, from complications related to diabetes. He was buried at Evergreen Cemetery in Winston-Salem. His net worth, estimated at around $300,000, reflected survival rather than success. Michael Winslow as Larvell Jones. Michael Winslow was born on September 6, 1958, in Washington, D.C., United States. At 26, Michael Winslow played Larvell Jones, the human sound effects machine, in Police Academy, 1984, a role he carried through all 7 films. His talent was extraordinary. His personal life, however, steadily unraveled behind the noise. Winslow's marriages left deep scars. His first wife, Belinda Church, died shortly after their separation, a loss that haunted him for years. His later marriages to Angela Baytops and Karen Winslow both ended in divorce, fractured by financial stress, constant touring, and emotional distance from his 5 children. By the early 1990s, his family life had collapsed into silence, leaving him isolated despite public recognition. Professionally, success proved fragile. After Police Academy ended, Winslow made disastrous financial investments and declared bankruptcy, watching his fame evaporate almost overnight. Although roles in Spaceballs and Cheech and Chong's next movie kept his name alive, the fear of becoming irrelevant never left him. Emotionally exhausted, he rebuilt himself through one-man stage shows, turning survival into performance. In 2025, Winslow is 67 years old and still working, touring internationally as a live performer and motivational speaker. His estimated net worth of around $1 million reflects hard-earned recovery rather than fortune. G.W. Bailey as Lieutenant Captain. Thaddeus Harris, G.W. Bailey, was born on August 27, 1944, in Port Arthur, Texas, United States. At 40, G.W. Bailey played Thaddeus Harris, the rigid bullying antagonist, in Police Academy, 1984. He continued across 6 films as Harris rose from lieutenant to captain and brought him fame. What looked like stability on screen hid years of quiet pressure off it. Bailey married Eleanor June Gooseby in 1966, and together they raised 2 children. But the marriage slowly eroded under financial insecurity and constant absence. The strain led to emotional distance and, eventually, divorce in 1999. Professionally, success came with a cost. Harris locked him into comic villain roles, limiting range and delaying reinvention until the closer and major crimes finally gave him long-term stability decades later. In 2025, Bailey is 81 years old and largely retired from acting, devoting his time to charitable work with the Sunshine Kids Foundation. His estimated net worth of around $5 million reflects endurance rather than excess. Leslie Easterbrook as Sergeant Debbie Callahan. Leslie Easterbrook was born on July 29, 1949, in Los Angeles, California, United States. At 35, Leslie Easterbrook played Debbie Callahan, the intimidating, sexually confident training sergeant, in Police Academy, 1984, appearing in 6 films across the franchise. The role made her iconic almost overnight. It also trapped her in an image she never asked for. Easterbrook married screenwriter Dan Wilcox, and their marriage lasted decades, but was shaped by distance and clashing schedules. While she traveled constantly for film and stage work, Wilcox's writing career kept him anchored elsewhere, creating long periods of separation and emotional strain. His death in 2024 left her confronting a new and profound loneliness. Her career carried its own frustration. Despite strong performances and musical talent, including singing the national anthem at the Super Bowl, Hollywood repeatedly reduced her to the tough, sexy woman, limiting leading roles. She reinvented herself through horror films like House of a Thousand Corpses and The Devil's Rejects, helping her working but came with physical and emotional exhaustion from demanding roles. Today, Easterbrook is 76 years old and still active in independent film, theater, and charity work. With an estimated net worth of around $3 million, her life reflects resilience rather than comfort. Steve Guttenberg as Sergeant Carrie Mahoney. Steve Guttenberg was born on August 24, 1958 in Brooklyn, New York, United States. At 26, Steve Guttenberg played Carrie Mahoney, the rebellious but gifted cadet, in Police Academy, 1984. The role made him the smiling face of the franchise and its emotional center. Fame arrived instantly, but so did expectations that would quietly trap him. Guttenberg married model Denise Bixler in 1988, at the peak of his stardom, but the marriage collapsed under pressure and divorce followed in 1992. Years later, his second marriage to television reporter Emily Smith ended in another highly publicized split in 2025, reopening old wounds. The repeated breakdowns left him wary of intimacy, forcing him to confront the loneliness behind a career built on charm and accessibility. Professionally, his downfall was not failure, but choice. After 3 Men and a Baby became the biggest comedy hit of the decade, Guttenberg rejected sequels and franchise repetition, chasing more serious roles that never fully landed. Hollywood moved on quickly, leaving him sidelined, writing books, raising dogs, and watching younger stars replace him. His eventual return in projects like La Volantula felt more like reconciliation than revival. In 2025, Guttenberg is 67 years old and continues acting in television films while dedicating himself to charity and disaster relief. His estimated net worth, ranging between $12 and $30 million, reflects past triumph rather than present dominance. Bobcat Goldthwait as Zed McGlunk. Bobcat Goldthwait was born on May 26, 1962, in Syracuse, New York, United States. At 23, Bobcat Goldthwait played Zed, the anarchic gang leader turned police cadet, in Police Academy 2, 1985. His wild energy shocked audiences and made him unforgettable. Behind the chaos, however, was a man fighting to stay in control. Goldthwait's first marriage to Anne Luley ended in 1998 after years of instability caused by constant touring and emotional volatility. His second marriage to Sara de Sa Rego also collapsed in 2014, leaving him with 2 children and a growing sense of personal failure. Relationships struggled to survive his intensity, his unconventional lifestyle, and the emotional distance created by a career lived on the edge. His career itself was a rebellion. Typecast as a screaming comic menace, Goldthwait deliberately burned bridges to escape the image, famously igniting a chair on live television. The chaos cost him mainstream roles but pushed him toward directing darker, more personal films like Shakes the Clown and God Bless America. Now Goldthwait is 63 years old and focused primarily on directing, writing, and voice work. With an estimated net worth of around $3 million, his life stands as a contradiction. Behind the laughter of Police Academy were lives marked by pain, loss, and quiet battles no one saw coming. Long after the jokes faded, many carried scars that fame could never heal. Which story broke your heart the most? Leave a comment, like, and subscribe for more hidden stories behind Hollywood's smiles.